This is Good Morning Uganda.
Wednesday, 18th of January 2023. I'm not gonna lie, it's such a good Monday, rather it's such a good Wednesday morning for me. Amazing, and probably later on I'll be sharing why I'm happy, why I'm all smiles. It's always crazy in here, but hey, we are here to make sure we share our happiness with you, our Good Morning Uganda family. My name is Philomena, Mastiko, and I am with the gentleman and the lady, and that is of course Mollen, Felix, and Robert. It's also Women Crash Wednesday. Well, good morning, Robert. How are you doing?
Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm lovely. I cannot complain.
Oh, you look lovely, I must say.
Thank you.
And I hope our viewers are also very fine. Thank you so much for waking up with us. It is Good Morning Uganda. Every weekday we are here to kickstart your mornings, and of course by letting you know what is happening locally and globally. Now, one of the things that caught my attention, Philo and of course Felix and Mollen and our viewers, is how certain things can happen and then affect your destiny. Yesterday I was watching this young lady that fought for a boyfriend, allegedly hit the other over a boyfriend, appearing before court, now being remanded till the 31st. And I'm like, look at this young girl. What did she land herself into? And others that are still at large that police is determined to arrest.
Yes.
And then she finally comes out and says, okay, she was wrong. I am sorry, forgive me, this. But then she's now entering at her age. She's gone to the coolers and so, and she's being charged of aggravated torture.
Yes.
Which is a crime that is not even charged by the court where she was. So she's in hot soup. I was asking myself, really, how do you balance between your emotions, you know, to say, yes, I could be upset, but how do I create this balance, not to land into problems? And I was still thinking about that. Then this issue of buildings collapsing in Uganda came in. And I've noticed one weakness with all urban authorities. This was in Ginger. Other person says, okay, he got a plan, then he got opportunity, but you hadn't. And I'm like, oh.
Well, there is still a lot of work.
Yes, people in stuff.
A lot of work we are yet to do when it comes to all these authorities. The collapsing buildings, I must say, Robert, it's very sad, unfortunate. Good morning, Felix. How are you doing this Wednesday?
Well, I'm Sam. Good morning, Philo.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great, great.
So, Wednesday, we're crashing on women.
Yes.
Again.
Every
Yeah, I wanted to hear what Mollen would say about that clearly, and she wouldn't hold it back. But anyway, it's always a good opportunity to crash on our beautiful ladies. And of course, on a day like this, who wouldn't want to crash on their mothers? Well, there are days that do remind you of how hard it is to be a mother. I was reading a certain book, so I can't get my mind straight about the author, but it was about the process of childbearing and raising. And clearly it showed so much of what mothers go through, like the marks on women's stomach, for those who go through cesarean section and what. That's a mark you have to carry around yourself for almost your lifetime, and because you're able to bring life to the world. So I think I would want to crush on women who are mothers.
Yeah.
Of course, having the case study of my mother.
Oh, wow. Case study? Wow.
The case study being my mother, but I'm crushing on all ladies who are mothers.
Yeah.
And of course, as a case study, I can add Mollens and Roberts and Philos.
Hey,
well, thank you.
You're crushing on all these that are mothers and you're adding me.
Your mother. Your mother.
Oh,
yes. Mollen,
no.
yes, a very good morning to you. And of course, I want to say good morning to our viewers. Well, I don't know whether it's allowed to crush on myself.
No, it's not.
It's allowed.
It is allowed.
We're rolling you on Trump.
You look at this whole January and everything you've been able to do when, you know, there is complaints around, or this whole show about January, and if you're still alive and kicking and doing okay, I think it's better to caution yourself. But also, the women in football, I want to caution them. I did see recently watching Chan, I did see a woman as a referee and she was doing so well, and I was like, wow, I think women are making a difference there. And talking about Chan, you guys, recently, as I was watching yesterday's game for Mozambique and Libya, and I was like, wow, this is the vibe that we needed in Chan. I haven't seen, you know, a game that has been that vibrant, except also the other day when we had that game with Angola. They did put on a good show, and for the first time I was like, yeah, this is Chan, this is how Chan should be. And you look at the African nations now bringing in the football that is, you know, competitive. I think that was the Angola game, and then yesterday for Mozambique and Libya, and I was like, yeah, we need this. Now, the Uganda Cranes are up next, and they will be playing against Senegal. I don't know. I did see statements coming in from Mitchell. It seems like he feels like they will be up to that game, but I don't know. My fingers are crossed. It looks like the Lions of Terenga are quite strong. I don't know how Uganda will emerge, but I'll support.
Yeah, me, I'm very optimistic. I know that they will perform. But also, speaking of Women Crush Wednesday, I'm actually crushing on Mollen. So this Wednesday, I am dedicating it to Mollen. Yeah, she's such a hard
that is so nice. Thank you so much.
Well, we have to get into the stories, the local stories. Robert and Felix, what do you have for us this morning?
We'll begin with His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda, who is in the United Arab Emirates, and he was able to meet and lure more people to come and invest in motherland, Uganda. Well, President Yoweri Museveni appealed to people in the United Arab Emirates to come to Uganda. He was meeting the business community and said there are a number of untapped opportunities in Uganda that can be invested in, and they are able to make money. Addressing the UAE, Uganda Presidential Initiative on Investment Summit in the United Arab Emirates capital of Abu Dhabi, President Museveni told the participants that although Uganda's economy is growing at 6% per annum, the economy has great potential to grow faster.
Well, of course, also the National Social Security Fund has a target to becoming the 20 trillion shilling fund by the year 2025. To date, their savings are at least at 17.9 trillion. Now, while appearing before the Finance Committee of the Parliament, Acting Managing Director, NSSF Patrick Ayota, said this can be achieved by creating a buffer of benefits through relying on both the formal and the informal sector.
While now we look at registration of learners, where learners need to utilize the holiday period and register with the National Identification and Registration Authority, NIRA. This will help in the operationalization of recently launched revised lower secondary school curriculum that entails collection of continuous assessment scores as part of their final UNEB results. UNEB warns schools and learners in particular that failure to register to get the national identification number would translate into no grading of the learner despite having attended school for the specified period.
Well, also, now still looking at the same stories, we'll be looking at truck drivers and the business communities at Mpondwe border in Kasese district have called on the joint security forces to tighten their operations in fighting terror activities in the Democratic Republic of Congo to allow them carry out trade in the conducive environment. Now, following the bomb explosion in the eastern part of DRC, a few kilometers from the border, that left more than 15 people dead, and the business community did also come out to urge the security forces to increase on their presence in these particular areas.
Now, looking at some of the international stories, the Church of England's bishops have refused to back a change in teaching to allow priests to marry the same. Now, the Church of England's bishops met on Tuesday to finalize the recommendations after 5 years on sexuality. Their proposal will be debated at the church's equivalent of a parliament, the General Synod, next. Now, according to international media outlets, several bishops present at the meeting who say the church's teaching that holy might not change and would not be put to a vote. And the oldest person in the world, a French nun, Lucille Randon, has died at the age of 118. Randon, who took the name of Sister Andre when she became a nun in 1944, died in her sleep on Tuesday at the nursing home where she lived. Randon was born on February 11, 1904, and was the world's oldest living person, according to the Gerontology Research Group's World Supercentenarian rankings list.
Soldiers have been killed by the Al-Shabaab attack on Somalia military base. Now, fighters from the Al-Shabaab group stormed a military base in central Somalia that the government had recaptured from the last year, killing at least 7 soldiers, including the base commander, an officer said. The assailants from the Al-Qaeda affiliate rammed the base in the village of Howardly with a suicide car bomb on Tuesday and then opened fire. Captain Aden Noor, a military officer in the nearby town, told Reuters news agency. Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack in a statement, saying it had killed many apostate soldiers and their commander. Now, climate campaigner Greta Thunberg was among those briefly detained by police at a protest in western Germany. She was protesting with activists seeking to stop the abandoned village of Lützerath from being demolished for the expansion of a coal mine. Police clarified that Ms. Thunberg had not been arrested and later said she had been released after an ID check. The Swedish activist was detained after the group rushed towards the ledge of the Galwira 2 mine, according to police. Now, officers also confirmed that all the detained would not be charged.
Well, speaking of news, we still have more stories making it to the headlines in our dailies. The New Vision Daily Monitor later on will be taking you through the Daily Nation and the Citizen. But for now, the New Vision: private schools to lose licenses over pupil registration. Now, government schools to miss funding, and 6 million learners will be affected in all of this. President Museveni woos UAE investors, and looking at the picture there with the president and of course with the finance minister Matia Kasaija and their United Arab Emirates counterparts at the UAE-Uganda Presidential Initiative on Investment Summit in Abu Dhabi. Tourists rape case, cops face disciplinary action. And still in more education, Expo excites teachers and learners. Looking at Kawempe fire mystery deepens, and also over 8,000 peasants to get titles. Payouts: NSSF pays 636 billion in mid-term access.
Well, now in the Daily Monitor, arts teachers to go on strike. Of course, when and why is all in the papers now. Shadow Finance Minister wants NSSF later tabled, and developing property for rent versus property for sale. Now, of course, African High Level Forum kicks off in Kampala, and capacity building there. Who will be in attendance, and what is the particular expectation from this is all still in the papers. Cabinet gives nod to oil pipeline construction license, and NRM party pays tribute to Gary Wango, the late, the fallen ambassador. Also still in the Daily Monitor, eyewitnesses recount how hotel extension collapsed. That is an extension of Speak Courts Hotel in Jinja City. And of course also they give you a couple of Today in history, Kampala residents flee, why they did, and Patrice Lumumba is assassinated.
The New Vision Sports Senegal must fall. And of course, Blazers are blazing when it comes to basketball. Well, quite a lot of the soccer news in there. And there is also Inside the Sportswoman giving you a few details on that as well. So yes, grab yourself the New Vision this morning.
Still in sports, itching for fast victory. Today we will see Senegal take on Uganda, and of course, worst case scenario, Uganda need to avoid defeat to the Lions of the Terenga tonight to enter the final group game against Ivory Coast. Still is interesting.
And yes, speaking of those games, they'll be running live on UBC TV, so make sure you catch up. Do not miss out. Well, Robert, speaking of missing out, we don't want to miss out your words of wisdom.
Now, sometimes when games are on, if your health is not that very good, the results can take you to your creator. But you need to have a strong body that can resist a number of things. And these help you to fight diseases that may have such impacts. This is Hallelujah Jing tea. We have Hallelujah tamarind drink and Hallelujah banana juice. Now, these boost your immune system and they are quite affordable, just 1,500 a bottle. So we recommend regular taking of these. At least a day, make sure you take 1 or 2 daily, and I guarantee you, you'll feel the difference because you have more savings and be more productive.
There is a lot we are yet to have this morning on Good Morning Uganda, and we have discussions that are coming up between myself and Felix later on. You'll also be having more updates from the weather and climate and traffic from Mollen. So do stay with us as we go for this break. When we get back, more of that.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Wednesday, 18th of January 2023. I'm not gonna lie, it's such a good Monday, rather it's such a good Wednesday morning for me. Amazing, and probably later on I'll be sharing why I'm happy, why I'm all smiles. It's always crazy in here, but hey, we are here to make sure we share our happiness with you, our Good Morning Uganda family. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and I am with the gentleman and the lady, and that is of course Mollen, Felix and Robert. It's also Women Crash Wednesday. Well, good morning, Robert. How are you doing?
Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm lovely. I cannot complain.
Oh, you look lovely, I must say.
Thank you.
And I hope our viewers are also very fine. Thank you so much for waking up with us. It is Good Morning Uganda. Every weekday we are here to kickstart your mornings, and of course by letting you know what is happening locally and globally. Now, one of the things that caught my attention, Philo and of course Felix and Mollen and our viewers, is how certain things can happen and then affect your destiny. Yesterday I was watching this young lady that fought for her boyfriend, allegedly hit the other over her boyfriend, appearing before court, now being remanded till the 31st. And I'm like, look at this young girl. What did she land herself into? And others that are still at large that police is determined to arrest.
Yes.
And then she finally comes out and says, okay, she was wrong. I am sorry, forgive me, this. But then she's now entering at her age. She's gone to the coolers and so, and she's being charged of aggravated torture.
Yes.
Which is a crime that is not even charged by the court where she was. So she's in hot soup. I was asking myself, really, how do you balance between your emotions, you know, to say, yes, I could be upset, but how do I create this balance, not to land into problems? And I was still thinking about that. Then this issue of buildings collapsing in Uganda came in. And I've noticed one weakness with all urban authorities. This was in Jinja. Other person says, okay, he got a plan, then he got opportunity, but you hadn't. And I'm like, oh.
Well, there is still a lot
Ugandans
of work.
are the happiest people in stuff.
A lot of work we are yet to do when it comes to all these authorities. The collapsing buildings, I must say, Robert, it's very sad and unfortunate. Good morning, Felix. How are you doing this Wednesday?
Well, I'm Sam. Good morning, Philo.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great, great.
So, Wednesday, we're crashing on women.
Yes.
Again.
Every.
Yeah, I wanted to hear what Mollen would say about that clearly, and she wouldn't hold it back. But anyway, it's always a good opportunity to crush on our beautiful ladies. And of course, on a day like this, who would want to crush on their mothers? Well, there are days that do remind you of how hard it is to be a mother. I was reading a certain book, I can't get my mind straight about the author, but it was about the process of childbearing and raising. And clearly it showed so much of what mothers go through, like the marks on women's stomach for those who go through cesarean section and what. That's a mark you have to carry around yourself for almost your lifetime, and because you're able to bring life to the world. So I think I would want to crush on women who are mothers.
Yeah.
Of course, having the case study of my mother.
Oh, wow. Case study? Wow.
The case study being my mother, but I'm crushing on all ladies who are mothers.
Yeah.
And of course, as a case study, I can add Mollens and Roberts and Philos.
Hey,
well,
thank you.
You're crushing on all these that are mothers and you're adding me.
Your
no,
mother.
to your mother.
Oh,
Yes. Mollen, it's good morning.
No.
Yes, a very good morning to you, and of course I want to say good morning to our viewers. Well, I don't know whether it's allowed to crush on myself.
No, it's not.
It's allowed.
It is allowed.
We're rolling your own trumpet.
You look at this whole January and everything you've been able to do when, you know, there is complaints around, or this whole show about January, and if you're still alive and kicking and doing okay, I think it's better to crush on yourself. But
To urgently send money to my sick mother, but I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Guru. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Oli musiru.
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Get the most affordable 4G smartphone in Uganda from Airtel. Now heavily discounted from 250,000 shillings to 150,000 shillings only. Yes, 150,000 shillings only to keep you connected to your loved ones.
Dial *175*94# to activate free 1 GB instantly and 100% double data on all weekly and monthly bundles for 3 months. Get one today while stock lasts from the nearest Airtel shop. With Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Welcome to the newsreel. 8 minutes after 7 a.m. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and I am with Felix Nkunda, talking about issues of national importance, talking about issues that affect us economically. Today, we are going to have a discussion about money, about the budget, about the economy performance, and how government can come in to make sure that they continue with the service delivery amidst all these hard economic times. Now, we'll be very happy and excited to know that you are listening and watching, but also contributing, telling us how best we can do this. In today's poll question, we would love to hear from you some of your suggestions concerning how government can continue to deliver amidst all these economic times. How do they do it? How do they go around it to make sure that even with all the financial constraints, they're still able to deliver some of the things that we need as a country? Now, speaking of the budget, we know that the national budget framework is under scrutiny, is also being debated by Parliament after it was presented to the August House by the Honorable Minister Matia Kasaija of Finance back in December. We are looking at a total envelope of about 49.9 trillion Uganda shillings. Now, this is way up from 48.1 back in the financial year of 2022-2023. We're looking at an increment of 18% as well. So we are held in there. Now, with all of that at the back of our minds, we know that Parliament has also come down to cut the number of budgets in all of this to make sure that we minimize the cost and we are able to handle what we can actually handle, or we can bite off what we can chew. Of course, very many ministries are not happy about these cuts, but also recently His Excellency did come out and put a ban on all this traveling that has been done by very many ministerial officials or government officials, because he believes it's a wastage of money. So I feel, I don't know, Felix, I'm very happy about this. Oh, yes, I am. I am. Exactly. My specific interest and happiness right now is on the banning of all these unnecessary movements. Previously, you'll see a minister or an official going to travel. They're not traveling by themselves. They have like a whole convoy behind them, then the allowances, and very many other costs that we don't even know about. So, personally, I am very happy about this decision. Where
they say it's biblical. I'm yet to assert to find out.
Well, I am happy and excited about that, and I think this is, and again, this is where I would really want to hear from you. Looking at moves like this, are we looking at a promising economic management, especially when it comes to the budget? Is this promising that maybe we are going to start minimizing our costs, starting from the ban that was put by the president and, you know, progressing to the cuts of the budget, even though the budget has grown, but we are seeing also very many other budget cuts from the parliament to specific ministries?
Well, you see, it's a very beautiful topic to discuss expenditure.
Yes.
And however, the hardest of the same is when you're discussing income. You see, government doesn't run any different from how we run as human beings. And if you want to get this straight or right, you just use your personal analogy of your human life. For some of us who have fairly appreciated the economics of transaction, the bearing factor or the most usage, or what you determine, the determinant of how you spend, is entirely backed on how you earn. When you go to different economies or different societies, they have different economic styles. For some of you viewers and listeners who have done business, you know that your outflow must definitely be as a result of your inflow. You can only determine what you give out or how you spend depending on how you earn. Now, the big question is this: what is a country's source of income? If you look at it in that way, how do governments make money? There are 3 or 4 major ways. One, the most primary one is taxes. The rest could be liabilities in form of earnings, but like loans, grants, just to mention but a few. So for some of the countries who have gone into a higher gear of industrialization and they earn direct income from aspects or operations like oil, selling, like we are trying to organize ourselves.
Yes.
When you go to other countries, the likes of the Russias, the Ukraines, they have something to offer as a country, not as individuals. Later on, of course, it comes back to the country, but countries get into business. So if Uganda starts its exploration, it will be directly in business, and that will definitely be also be put on part on what its income is. Now, every situation gives you a different avenue of a different economic decision. Most recently, Uganda is struggling financially. You may want to hide that or pretend, but it's a matter of fact.
It's a public secret. Yeah, it's a public secret.
Better say it that way. That it is a known anyway. And not only Uganda. The effects of COVID-19 have continuously affected the world, by the way. And majorly third world countries. But you go to Europe, you'll be shocked. The richest people in the world made their most money during times of COVID, surprisingly.
Yes.
They were superseding each other. Someone who had 10 billion went to 80. Someone who had 80 went to 100 and something. And surprisingly, I don't wonder why Ugandans didn't. But back to the topic. When you say that, how does government live within the means of the most recent times? I think it's not even what government is doing by these things some of them you've broken down.
Yes.
You know, how do I put this? As a country, we have fallen short of economic intelligence. And from a long time, by the way. The things you have been, it's been, so what you're seeing today is not actually addressing the problem. You can't start thinking of how you get out of a ditch when you're already in the ditch. This could be avoided many, many years ago. The style of investing and usage of money in this country is abusive. It's evil. And I can give you an example, one to the other. For example, I'll tell you how much money does the government spend on purchasing motor vehicles in this country.
And for different groups of people, it's not like we're dealing with...
And I can give you one of the major examples. You go to Parliament. If after 5 years, you spend billions of money buying cars to people who are paid a huge salary, then you pay for them other ADs and all these things. What's the use? What's the use of that? Because in economics, you must be able to defend an expense. Does it fall under operation? Does it fall under... Where does that expense fall? Now, the failure of us as a country to place some of our expenses in right economic positions has given us the challenge. I'll give you another example. You go to the kind of forums we hold on a daily. Go to the expenses. If you look at the expense sheets of different ministries, what they spend on.
Yes.
They give you a budget of about 100 billion. But what is that money spent on?
Workshops, special meals, probably travel allowances, probably... most of them are really administration.
Now, and that's the word I'm looking for. What is our cost of political administration vis-a-vis execution of work that the money is meant for? We spend a lot on political administration. But what's the return on that investment? How much do we get from investing in political administration? Honestly, because entirely the administration or the government is meant to elevate Ugandans from one place to another.
Yes.
But what's the contribution of political administration in changing lives of Ugandans? When you send a Philomena to a meeting in Europe for 5 days and you're giving them per day, and let's say we have another 100 Philomenas who will go to Europe maybe that year. How does that change the life of Ugandans in Kasokoso, in Chiliandongo? How does that? Because there must be a direct relationship between our expenses as a country to the change of lives of Ugandans. If we can't be able to trace that, those are the areas that we need to pull out money in hard times.
Probably the people who are sent to go and attend these things have gone to benchmark and I don't know whatever it is they always do. My issue is that...
what comes out of it?
Yes, exactly.
Honestly. Second, let's look at the salary scale. what people are earning vis-a-vis what they are doing. There's a story that ran a couple of years ago that put one of the drivers of an institution to about 15 million. It was a Kampala authority, something like that. There was cases here. There was a time, a story ran that people's salaries. But after you pay someone a humongous amount of money, you give them other allowances. You give them a car, you give them fuel, you give them airtime, you give them clothing allowance. You get. This is one person.
Yes.
You get the point. Like, what is the intention? Salaries are meant to motivate and what? But who are you motivating? This is a position for one person.
But you have very many other people in the same position, probably in different ministries and different sectors, and they're getting the same allowances. So the monies are going to a very specific group of people.
Now, how does a huge salary for an individual trickle into development? And these are the questions, because everything we do in terms of expenses, it must directly correlate with development, with changing of lives. And these are the questions that, these are things that other countries are doing. You see, when you see other countries, prime ministers driving bicycles, driving cars that are not guzzlers, it is not because they don't want. They look at all these things, that when you get a salary that can pay 10 people and you give it to one person, how does that motivate development?
And what value is that person bringing?
You go and you see one person having over 7 cars on their convoy. This person is not a president, he's not a chief justice, he's not, but 7 cars. These are all guzzlers. But they drive them from Kampala to the village to where, and that money is whose money?
The taxpayers' money.
Now, these are the things that people may fear to talk about, but when they're the ones that constrain our budget. We cannot afford to buy medicine in hospitals because someone else is taking all this money. It may look as something small, but if someone spends, let's say, 5 million on every day fuel because of those many cars they drive, in 300 and how many days, how much money is that?
Well, speaking of that, I was talking to one of the economists from CSBAG yesterday, and they were making reference to, first of all, if they were to cut several budgets. Again, we'll be talking more about, there is quite a dark side and a good side of the budget cuts. And now that you talk about that, they were making reference to Parliament. Their budget is, I don't even know the best word that can describe that. And they were asking, why? Why do we have this amount of money going to Parliament?
I can add to that without fear of contradiction. One of the most disabling institution for growth, socio-economic growth for the country, would be Parliament. The activities of Parliament take a lot of money, but they have no direct relationship to socio-economic growth of the citizens. And I can be challenged, I would stand to be challenged on this one. Today you wake up and they say they speak about a of how many billion, here they call them ceremonials.
The ceremonial cars, yes.
Which ceremony? I think we are misusing words. Which ceremony? And when we talk about some of these things, we sound like we are not for, but this is the reality. And this is what I think the gentleman was trying to say.
Yes.
That let us look into the places where we must revise. Imagine a situation if we bought cars for Parliament, just like we buy for ministries. Let those cars be there. And they are properties of Parliament. When you come into office, they allocate you a car. It's as simple as that. But you can't be buying cars every after 5. Like if the Parliament is thrown out of Parliament and already go take even the one who comes, they
get their own.
In Uganda we say bali kumugano gwansi governance. You go to the committees.
The money that
The
is
allowances.
allocated to these committees is it's something else.
And I think one of this decision, I don't know, it took us for a ride. Like, well, there's something you're not understanding about the Ugandan style of parliament, but we are yet to know. But even if I'm to go far from that, Philomena, you see, this again comes back to the style of governance of, and this is where now it is biting the administration. That these things have been happening under the, and they seemed okay in normal times. Now in hard times, they're almost irreversible. Like, how do you now stop some of these activities overnight to remedy a situation that is a financial crisis? Then later on, you'll be called, people like you'll be tackling your own loyalty, political loyalty. If you say, Philomena, you cannot have 2 escorting cars, but you're the one who gave. I don't know if you get the challenge.
Yes.
Now, we have a big clash between political administration and service delivery administration. And we have spent more money on the political administration. And this is an evidence, not by only in Uganda. Most of the third world countries, leaders spend more on what keeps them in power than what actually makes. And this is the evidence of the same. So when His Excellency comes out and says no government and civil servants are going to be traveling abroad because there is no money. So, but previously it has been okay, and no one has been talking about it. Now, what happens to those activities that probably have been already paid? Because sometimes you pay up front. What happens?
Well, minimizing budget costs. How can government cut budget costs amidst a soaring economy? Well, there are very many areas of concern that have been brought to light, especially in light with this new budget that we are having. You already talked about the administration, the unnecessary administration, but also I was reading a report and it shows a number of other things that we have ignored, but also we would ideally we are actually spending a lot of money on and we are losing a lot of money. One of the things they talked about when it comes to the health facilities, the fact that we purchase very many expensive medical equipment, but they're not functional in most of these hospitals, is actually making us as an economy bleed a lot of money, especially the government hospitals. Because yes, how am I going to make sure that this hospital delivers on what is supposed to be delivered, the deliverables, the health deliverables? And we are buying all this equipment, but there are no people operating that. There are very many hospitals or very many buildings that have been put up by government, but they don't have I could say they don't have water, they don't have electricity, but it's a standalone building, it's there. It's not functional. The functionality is debatable. You're losing a lot of money. You put money into construction of these buildings, you know, of these facilities, but then they're not functional. So how are we getting money out of that? Look at the loans that we are getting. We have failed to have a very efficient planning capacity for these loans. You know, you want money to do something, to probably put up a development or, you know, to develop infrastructures in this sector, but you don't have a well laid down plan. You find that even the loan you have gotten is not enough, it's not sufficient enough for you to fulfill that project. So the project is halfway, the loan is already used up. What are you going to do?
You see, Philo, Uganda and very many countries have not seen the interest of investing in what we call national think tanks and researchers. But between you and me, the world most recent moves on research and think tank groups of people. You know, the problem with again, third world countries where Uganda is part of, we never, as I told you, we always have a clash of politics versus socio-economic administration or development.
Yes.
And that falls directly in what you're saying. For example, what should inform getting a loan for a country? You must, first of all, answer the question of the need. That what's the need? And there are two things that always clash. A political you see, something what you call wanting and needing.
Yes.
And this has been a big clash for most of the governments in Africa. Like, do you want something?
Or do you need it? And this is the same, by the way, same system that should work for a human being, for an individual.
There's no difference.
Yes.
Ministers or government officials want a classic car, a good car, and a lead car.
But they don't need it.
For show business, for what? To disturb other road users. But do they need that? Does a minister of a government, a well-composed government, need to have all this? You get the point. When you come to borrowing, do we need to borrow for some things, or we just want to borrow? Because that's the whole thing.
Bad. Loans are not bad.
You just get, there must be. Now, what makes a need different from a want? That a want is not, without it you may not die. But when you need something, you must get it for your survival. Now, when we go to borrow money, do we borrow for survival, or we borrow because of, someone tell you we want to borrow money because we need to buy a fleet of cars.
We need to pay salaries.
Let me give you an example. One of the things that happened in this country. When they're building some of the roads, they will borrow money and the money will stay there. The loan interest is accumulating. And because they didn't do the necessary research, roads won't commence. But the loan interest is accumulating. They hadn't carried out the research in terms of the compensation amounts and who will be paid. And that's the challenge. And that brings us to the question, one of the biggest challenges of our financial situation lately is that, do we have the right people in the right offices? It takes you back to the same thing of our argument, political administration versus socio-economic development administration. If we are still dealing with the appointment of individuals in places or offices because of addressing a political question, that's the biggest challenge, that we never get the right work done. You find someone in an institution because they have to satisfy a political desire, but they're not even knowledgeable about what's to be done in that office. So they won't ask the right questions, they won't do the right moves. Like, there's nothing right about what will happen.
Yes.
And in the event of that, you will lose money. Let me say something else. Like, when you have an institution like NIRA, full of brilliant engineers, if you want to assess the work of NIRA vis-a-vis the amount of money it takes, you'll be disappointed. Go to KCCA today. What kind of city has potholes on every road in this? But it has engineers, directorate, physical planning, but buildings are falling every day in Kampala. Like, but
somebody's
people are taking
salaries. Yes.
Now, when buildings fall, government will incur a cost, indirectly or directly. When roads are not made well, government, that means we are going to spend almost 5 years redoing, maintaining, and in most recent, people are not even shy. They fill roads with mud, I don't know, mud, I see, you can imagine a KCCA tractor carrying debris. I think they pick debris all over town, and they start filling potholes.
And when it
rains... And that's an authority. But that road probably was made 2 years ago. But it has an ED, it has a mayor, mania councillors, and those are the challenges we are facing. There's a lot of wastage. People in offices are not put on, like, in order to perform. Their performance is it is shoddy. People in offices are doing lucrative work. Now, the reputation of work, you can't be fixing one road every year, after 6 months. But you paid. Now, these are all costs, and this is what brings Uganda in a situation, hardships.
They usually bring that under the disguise of maintenance, maintenance, but what you're doing to maintain the road, it's questionable. ideally it's making the road situation worse.
But can you be going to a marriage counselor 3 months after wedlock? It means that's the time for kajanja in marriage. But if for you, instead of having that, if you're going to a counselor after 2 months in wedlock, don't you think people start thinking like, was there really a wedding? Or it was for shows and what? Now that's the thing. You can't, what is maintenance? You can't maintain a 2-year-old road. If roads of Obote times and mean times and whoever times are still.
Well,
so, for me, I think the question, if you want, and there's a direct relationship between who is in the office, and the biggest challenge of our financial times is the wrong people in offices, because we are answering.
Do we need an overhaul?
Absolutely.
Overhaul of all the government workers.
Not
from the top. Is that what?
No. We wouldn't say that. That would be harsh. But in the most sensitive offices where we spend a lot of money, we need to be very careful when we are employing people. And that's the problem is that there's still a big clash with politics. Because we have to maintain our political stability in some areas, we put the wrong people in offices. Who will do the politicking for us? So we are dealing with a clash between politics and socio-economic administration. And for me, I think that's one of the biggest causes of the hard economic times.
Yes.
That people are in offices where they shouldn't be, but they're only there to maintain political stance.
Well, how can government cut budget costs amidst a soaring economy? We're looking at minimizing budget costs. We know that a couple of months from now, we'll be reading, or the Ministry of Finance will be releasing the budget for the financial year 2023-2024. And already as it is, there are very many cries and a lot of wailing from very many ministries, where we have noticed significant cuts. Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Water, to mention but a few. So all of that, we are trying to make sure that we are able to fund our budget of 49.9 trillion Uganda shillings. I do have some feedback coming in here, and Vivian is saying that I support what His Excellency did. A lot of money is spent on facilitating all these officials who make unnecessary movements 95% of the time. They don't really have a plan, probably they do, but it's really becoming frequent.
Do you know, during COVID times, we saved money that should have been spent for those travels, over 500 billion in just a year and a half. You can imagine how much this guy is wasting on these travels.
Yeah. Well, Edgar Bashir is saying, Parliament is one of those things that we need to manage very well. They are squandering a lot of money and we don't see it, or we see it and ignore it. Again, Parliament, I think this is the one.
First of all, there are too many. There are too many unnecessarily. They're all doing the same job. You can imagine over 500 people doing one
job. Yes.
One job, all of them are doing the same thing. But yet they are being paid. It's just a joke. It's just a joke.
Good morning, Uganda. Go on and let us know what you think about this. Our poll question is running on our socials. The hashtag is UBCJMU. Make use of our WhatsApp as well. And the number is 0709602592. Tell us what you think about this. 2023, your mission as a Ugandan should be to manage in all ways that you possibly can to get that financial accountability from your people, from your representatives, and also be able to help, be concerned, concern yourself with whatever is happening, especially when it comes to the monies and the budget, because at the end of the day, it's going to come and bite you.
No, it does always
and you may not even know it, but it could actually already be doing that. So you need to be woke, like the young people say.
Absolutely, you must interest yourself. But something lastly, Philo, we didn't talk about is corruption.
Oh, yes.
And you can't talk about hard times. Like also you wonder, a person who steals a poor person from a poor person, what kind of person is, you can imagine. Like we used to have some people steal in church. But how do you go to church to steal?
Well.
Because there's that old English saying, as poor as a church mouse. So one of the challenges that we face most recent, Philo, is corruption also, that people steal a lot of money from government. They never do the work they should do. They take that money for personal use. They are building funny structures all over the country.
The same structures that are collapsed?
Lousy, very lousy. Because the money, stolen money, you just build.
You're building at night.
Rush. Yes,
you don't want to be monitored.
Then they build shapeless houses. Like, so the challenge of corruption also is one of the biggest challenges we have, and in all institutions.
Yes.
Majorly, government institutions have been cut out, I think, to be the center exhibitors of corruption. Go to ministries. We see this, they have cut the money that are going to different, but those thieves there, for them they are waiting.
Yes.
They are waiting. They even steal from the little.
Or even waiting for the supplementary budgets.
Shush.
I mean, a couple months.
So I think if you're talking about dealing with economic times, let's have the money go and do what it's got to do. But importantly, let's focus on the needs of the society than what we want. You may want to buy a new clothes, but do you need to? What's wrong with the ones you're putting on?
And at whose expense anyway? If you're going to buy that new cloth or do that project, use your own and money. Don't really touch
honestly and truly, I've never
money.
understood the reason why they buy cars for members of parliament.
I think their salaries can do that for them.
I've never understood why they have to buy cars for members. I'm traveling like with that. And funny thing, opposition never talks about such things. I never saw. Anyway.
Good morning, Uganda. We're going for a
Uganda,
break. So. When we come back, we'll be also looking at more updates. We'll be looking at weather, and Mollen will be giving us more about that. But also, very important for you to know some of the stories that are making it to our papers. The New Vision Daily Monitor. We do have the Daily Nation as well. We also do have the Citizen in Tanzania, looking at some of these big stories.
Well, of course, in the Daily Nation, we'll be looking at the big headline where we see a cheating nation. Cheating who? What? In terms of... Okay.
That sounds so much like deja vu. That's a deja vu kind of situation.
Absolutely, it is. So there's a lot of... that is Muranga's lead on the percentage of women who had more than 2 partners in the past 12 months. Okay. But also in the Daily Nation, cosmetic and juices, alcohol prices up. Ruto alleges plot to abduct and kill Chebukati over poll. And did he have to die over missing dogs? Well, and of course it wasn't me, new twist in murder plot. Now still looking at something else there where we see crossing over to Tanzania, the Citizen. New twist for ESC monetary body timeline, and Zanzibar airport controversy rages as another firm files case. Now, new survey finding reveals why many families borrow, okay, and why Africans' talent need promotion.
Well, get yourself copies of the Daily Nation and the Citizen to catch up on all those stories. We go for a break. When we get back, Mollen will be here to give you a lot of info that you have been waiting for.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Keeping an eye on all your balance the old way.
I got this. yeah. Balance is... yeah.
What is he up to now?
Star 11.
Keeping an eye on all your balance with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to see all your balance in one place and in real time. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
I do miss him.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here, in the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking to the taste of food that takes you on a journey, in the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth, in the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the pearl of Africa.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, it is Good Morning Uganda, and right now I want to take you through the traffic updates, and later on we'll be going into the weather updates. Now, looking at the roads for now, we're seeing much more of the traffic building up, especially for the roads joining into the Kampala-Jinja Road. That is where we do have a little bit of traffic, but also looking further to some of the routes outside of town. If you're using the Nakawa Road up there, you're looking at more traffic building up. If you're headed to town, that is where we're looking at the orange and the red lines right there. If you're heading town, you might expect to have a little bit of traffic right there. But also, if you were to take some kind of detour through Katalima Road, it seems to be quite clear for this morning. We're looking at green lines, meaning that that is one road that is also clear if you're going to use it. We're also looking more as you head into Naguru. That is the road that has much traffic building up for those coming into town, but also if you're leaving town, joining back using that, you will be looking at more traffic building up. Now, still looking at the Kampala-Jinja Highway, if you get to that, you're looking at more of traffic building up as you join in towards the Nakawa-Jinja Road. That is when you can expect traffic for those leaving the Kampala-Jinja Highway, a way to go to the Nakawa-Jinja Road. You can expect more traffic building up. But then again, you look at that junction, also those coming in from Tinda Road, there's a lot of traffic there, and one that actually takes quite a longer distance. This is a one road you could actually choose to avoid this morning because there is more traffic building up right there as you join Jinja Road. But then again, as you join in, there is more traffic that again builds up on Kampala-Jinja Road. That is one to look out for, and also be sure that that will keep you a little bit behind for quite some minutes. Now, as you continue, still you look at more traffic building in right from the industrial area right there. There is still more traffic that does build up, and now it just gets to clear up as you head into the town. But also you look at the traffic lights right there. That is where you have more traffic building up for that area. But then again, you can, just it takes a few minutes, so you can be patient with it and make sure that you're still able to get into town even with that kind of traffic. Away from that, we also want to take a look at the weather situation over the country. We're looking at more cloudy weather developing for this morning, especially for the southern sector. But then again, there are also some of the stories trending in the climate arena. We're still following the protest. That is when it comes to the coal mine expansion in Germany. And we just learned that some of the activists that were detained yesterday by the German police did include Greta Thunberg. Now, Greta Thunberg is a Swedish activist, and she has been doing a lot of work when it comes to fighting for the environment. Her version has always been mostly around the fact that we need to work more for the environment. We need to take into consideration of climate action, and this is why she actually goes to most of these activism that goes around the world to put her voice right there. Now, she was detained yesterday, but then the police did give out a statement saying that they actually released her without any charges due to the fact that they realized what she was doing, and also other activists that were detained at that moment were later on released without charges. Now, you also look at the fact that this kind of activism has been going on for almost a week now. That is after a company in Germany decided they will be expanding their coal mine across the area, and that is why you now see a lot of scientists also coming up to say this is wrong, and they should be looking at more of the sustainable and more reliable ways of getting away from coal mining, and especially after COP26. That was in the UK, where we decided that all countries should be phasing out the use of coal. Now, if you look at a company that is now investing more and looking at putting more money in coal mining, this is something that everyone should be concerned about. And of course, that was near a village that is due to demolition, that is in Germany, alongside the eastern side of the area. And now they're saying that they might halt the activity until government has actually agreed upon. And also, you look at the commitments that were done even at COP27. Germany was one of the countries that did put their hand on a treaty that was signed way back, that is under the Paris Agreement, at least to do climate action. And so when you see some of the things going on, it is contrary to what they committed to do. And of course, that is one thing that I think the world will be looking at. If you make commitments, how far can you go? Now, on the other hand, we also have some of the countries that are stepping up their targets and their goals, especially with climate action. We look at that is Japan, that did come out today to say that they are inventing new technology to harvest carbon dioxide and also to make sure that trees are able to take in more carbon. Now, according to the factory that is working on this, they are insisting that they could be looking at more of the areas, especially the Pacific island of Japan, that could actually be delaying the release of the waste over the area, and that is also in a bid to make sure that they can clear out the nuclear plant that has been feared to be affecting the fisheries within the island. And of course, away from that, they also want to look at more investment into how they can harness most of this energy from the waters, but also do away with the nuclear energy that has been related to the island, especially now that there is also fears that it does affect the fisheries activities over the island. Now, while we talk about renewable energy, because we do know that nuclear power is actually renewable, it also has the waste product of it that now again is feared to be interfering with the environment, especially when we talk about fisheries. So this is why Japan is saying most of what it's going to do is going to be making sure that it is in line with other sectors of the economy. Yes, you want to promote more clean energy on the waters, but how about the aftermath of that? I think it is upon now the government to come up and say, okay, we're going to move forward with this project, but then we have this kind of plan B to make sure that the West is not again affecting what is coming through. Also did see a few countries that are stepping up. India is still going on with a bid to put in spend more money, especially when it comes to ensuring that they also have renewable energy. Just recently, they did announce the $100 billion fund that will be going especially for loss and damage across India. And we know that they have also been dealing with extreme weather events. Just this year alone, they have had to deal with extreme floods. And of course, last year did end also on a sad note for most areas in Asia. Pakistan also dealing with floods, and that was after they also had a long drought over the area. So some of these actions should actually be taken on, and we'll look at more of that to come through as we look at the next conference of parties to now agree on what is the next step. Also, do know that we're still talking more about the El Nino event that has been forecast for 2023 and 2024. We could be looking at the world surpassing the target that was set back, that is 1.5 degrees Celsius target. That means that if we go beyond that mark, we'd be looking at more extremes, more flooding, more drought, and at this time we're looking at more heat waves because the temperatures are actually getting much more warmer, and beyond 1.5 it's going to be leaving a small window for us to do any action to change the course. Otherwise, we could be looking at more catastrophic events. A lot of people have come out to talk about this very report that brings in the El Nino effect. We did see the UN Secretary General also talking about it, the WMO, that is the World Meteorological Organization, and yet to determine how far the world can go to actually make sure that we are back on track, especially with the targets that were set in the Paris Agreement. Away from that, we want to take a look at what is happening over the country. We'll be tapping in from our satellites and looking at mostly a sunny morning for today across northern Uganda. That also takes in the eastern side, that is the Karamoja region, all the way up to the eastern area. That whole place is starting off with mostly sunny weather. We're looking at the central part of Uganda, Nakasongola, Ruwero. We're looking at even an extension towards Hoima, Masindi. We're starting off with quite a sunny morning for you, where we see the open colors on the map right there in gray. That is indicating sunny conditions. We're also looking at part of southwestern Uganda towards areas of Fort Poto. You look at Kabale, Kasese, also the Rwenzori area, starting off with quite some sunshine. But then again, we do have a few clouds that are starting to develop over the Lake Victoria Basin that will be bringing in a bit of rains later as the morning progresses. Much more of that will also be moving westwards, meaning that the western part of Lake Victoria, where we have areas of Masaka extending all the way up to Rengo, Zimbabwe, we could be looking at a few rains for you this morning. But then again, that will be in just a few places. Now we'll go ahead and take a look at the forecast that is coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority and look at those numbers as well in terms of temperatures. We're starting off with the eastern side of Lake Victoria. That is where we have Tororo, Busia, Iganga and Jinja. We're forecasting isolated rains. Those will be starting off at a warm 28 degrees centigrade. Quite a warm morning for you. Now the western side of Lake Victoria, Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe and Rakai, we're forecasting isolated rains. Those will also be coming in later as the morning progresses, starting off at a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, and that system is likely to reappear later in the afternoon. Southwestern Uganda, Mbara, Ibanda, Bushenyi and Rubirizi, we're forecasting rains that will be across a few areas, starting off with a chilly 25, and that will clear on later for mostly sunny intervals in the afternoon. Mount Elgon Highlands also starting off with a mix of clouds and sunshine. A chilly morning at 25 degrees centigrade, and also more sunshine is predicted for later in the evening. Eastern Uganda also starting off quite sunny, more sunshine for this morning, but take a look at the temperatures right there. 30 degrees, that is quite hot for this morning, and we're looking at more hot weather even later in the afternoon because we will be maintaining mostly sunny conditions for you. So that is one to take note of. It's going to get hot out there. Now the eastern part of Central, where we have Ruwero, Wobblen, Zibururi, Nakaseke, we're looking at rainy conditions for you, but also starting off quite warm at 28 degrees centigrade. Later on also those will be clearing off for mostly a mix of clouds and sunshine. The central part of northern Uganda also starting off mostly sunny. We will have intervals of cloudy conditions, but you look at also a warm morning at 30 degrees, and we'll also be getting much warmer in the afternoon as we continue with most of those conditions. The central parts of Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe and Wakiso, we're forecasting light rains. Those will be across a few areas. We already have that system that is starting to develop. That will be bringing rains over that area, starting off with a chilly 25. And some of those rains might also cross over into the afternoon. At least that will help to keep most temperatures down across that area. But we're looking at mostly a continuation of dry weather for eastern, central and northern Uganda. We do have a pickup in wet weather conditions for southwestern Uganda and parts of the Lake Victoria Basin. That is where we expect at least temperatures to be a bit down. But if you're anywhere in northern Uganda, eastern Uganda, or if you're likely to travel there, be aware that it is quite sunny, it is hot, and you might need to prepare for that. Well, that is it in terms of our weather updates for this morning. We'll be having Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up with Philomena. Later than that, we'll also be going into sports, after which we'll take you through Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Mollen Kenyena, wishing you a blessed day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Happiness comes to us in many places. It's in knowing the mosquito net keeps our children healthy. The wife having the support of her husband. It's in deciding together when to have a baby. And for some, focusing on what's important right now. So what's your happiness? Make the right health decisions to ensure happiness for you and your family.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here. In the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's what you feel in the gentle caress of tropical wind from the mountaintops. And the glow in your heart from a warm neighborly invite. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking to the taste of food that takes you on a journey. In the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the pearl of Africa.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Thank you for joining us on GMU Agenda. We're coming to you live on UBC TV, where we'll live to inspire. This Wednesday morning, my name is Philomena Mastiko, and I am very excited to have a very special guest with me in studio, talking about a very special topic. And this is a topic that just doesn't concern only me, but also you as a Ugandan. When it comes to identification, different classes of people, you all need to be identified as Ugandans, but there are very many other things that entail you to do that. Well, this morning, our discussion is going to be revolving around the nationwide NIRA census of students. Now, this has been in the news for the last couple of hours. Of course, there is quite a lot of clarity that needs to be given to you. Now, who does it concern? What can you do? Do you have anything to do about that? What is it anyway? Well, lucky for you this morning, I do have a guest from National Identification and Registration Authority. Call it NIRA if you want to give us some clarity on that, to also give us some details on that. Speaking of which, I am joined by Mr. Edwin Tukamuhebwa. Now, this is the Manager, Registration and Operations at NIRA. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning to you, Philomena.
I'm very excited.
Thank you.
Every time I hear NIRA, there are a few things that come to my head. Either a national ID or a NIN, the national identification number, all of that. And I'm sure every Ugandan right now, they've had a story with NIRA, I'm pretty sure, whether it's about that card, whether it's about, you know, because everywhere right now, I am pretty sure any government institution where you're walking to, you won't leave without being asked for a national ID. You know that. Very many experiences, at least personally, I know that I have been through it. But this morning, my conversation between me and Edwin, we're going to be looking at this nationwide NIRA census of students. We're looking at nationwide census, we're looking at students in all of this. Previously, we've had NIRA engage in very many other activities with different categories of people, but now we are looking at students. Yes. Now, before we get into all of that, NIRA as an authority, NIRA as an institution, what is your mandate?
Thank you so much, Philomena, and good morning, Ugandans. First and foremost, my name again is Edwin Tukamuhebwa. I'm Manager Registration and Operations at NIRA. NIRA has a wide mandate, but the key points in the mandate is that we register citizens for purposely identification purposes, and also we do what we call civil registration. Those are two key ones. But in identification, we manage, maintain, and operationalize the National Identification Register. So in that, we register Ugandans and non-Ugandans, but who are legally resident in Uganda. I want to emphasize that. We are also mandated to register non-Ugandans, but who are legally resident in Uganda. So that's why we register Ugandans, we issue them NINs, or what we call national identification numbers.
Yes.
But we also go ahead and issue them with national identification cards, okay, or national IDs.
All right.
We also register birth and death, and that is what I call civil registration. So the information that we collect is used by government agencies and even the private sector for purposes of economic development.
Yes.
So basically that is how I can sum it.
Okay.
Yes.
And before we get still into the deeper discussion, maybe if you can differentiate for us, Edwin, a NIN and a national ID, who owns what? Is one of them owned by all categories of people? Who owns a NIN and who owns a national card? Which one is a subset of the other?
Okay, I'm going to start with a NIN.
Yes.
We are mandated to register all Ugandans irrespective of age. So we start from those that have just been born. So all Ugandans are issued NINs, or national identification numbers,
yes,
irrespective of age. However, those that are eligible to have national identification cards or national IDs are those who have attained the age of 16. So once you are 16, you get a national ID. But below 16, we issue a national identification number. Now, those that are above 16 also have NINs and IDs. Yes. And the NIN is actually written on the face of the ID.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I don't know whether it is very clear.
Very, very clear. Basically, every Ugandan should be owning a NIN.
Yes.
And if you are 16 years and above, then you can get a national identification card.
True.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, speaking of students, I also do understand with all the changes that have been happening in all ministries, speaking of Ministry of Education, we've also seen changes that are happening in the curriculum, especially the O-level curriculum. Now, I also do understand there is a partnership that is going on between UNEB and also NIRA. And this is where I would love us to center our conversation, because we need people to understand this partnership. Who does it concern? And even before we get into all of that, what is this? The nationwide NIRA census of students. What is that?
Okay, thank you so much again. Like many other agencies that we have been supporting, we are now registering students for purposes of issuing them NINs. Now, those NINs are required by UNEB for purposes of continuous assessment. You must have realized that of late, the country has changed the curriculum to the continuous assessment curriculum. Now, for you to be continuously assessed, you must be uniquely identified. And the identifier is a NIN. So that's why we have partnered with UNEB for purposes of registering the learners to issue them with NINs, and then those NINs are going to enable UNEB to track the continuous assessment of these very learners.
Okay.
Now, when we talk of this registration, it involves quite a number of things. One, we have students who registered in 2017 and those who have registered since then. So those ones have NINs. They do not need to register again with NIRA. However, most of them do not know their NINs. So what we will be doing in this exercise is to issue those who are already registered with the NINs.
Okay.
That is one. Two, there are those who have never registered. So we are also going to register them for purposes of giving them NINs.
Okay.
Three, there are those who have registered but have never been, whose applications were not successful for various reasons. So we are going to also rectify those applications, and then they will proceed to issue them with the NINs. Now, why we are partnering with UNEB is We are drumming this together. UNEB wants the runners to have NINs, and it is NIRA that issues NINs. So we've partnered together for this very purpose.
Okay, all right. We are still talking about registration of students, and of course NIRA as an authority, their mandate not just only cut out for students but even for the general Ugandan citizens. We'll be talking more of that when we get back here right after this break, when we are joined by more special guests this morning. It is Good Morning Uganda agenda. We'll be back shortly.
Happiness comes to us in many places. It's in knowing the mosquito net keeps our children healthy. The wife having the support of her husband. It's in deciding together when to have a baby. And for some, focusing on what's important right now. So what's your happiness? Make the right health decisions to ensure happiness for you and your family.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
You're still watching GMU Agenda here on